You will spend more of your life thinking about death than almost any other animal on Earth. Not because you're morbid, because your brain is built that way. And somewhere between 100,000 and 50,000 years ago, something happened inside the human mind that no other species has ever fully replicated. We didn't just notice death, we started fearing it before it arrived. That single shift may be the reason we buried our dead, built religions, and started asking questions no animal has ever asked. This is where that fear came from and what it built. Most animals experience death only in the moment it happens to them or to something nearby. A gazelle doesn't lie awake anticipating the lion. It reacts when the lion is already there. Fear, for almost every species on the planet, is immediate. It responds to a present threat and disappears when the threat is gone. Humans do something stranger. We fear a threat that hasn't arrived yet, that might not arrive for decades, and we do it consistently for our entire lives. Researchers call this the awareness of mortality salience. And as far as anyone can tell, it belongs to us alone. The evidence for when this started isn't written anywhere. It's buried, literally, in the ground. Archaeologists look for one specific signal: intentional burial. Not a body left where it fell, but a body placed deliberately, sometimes with objects arranged around it. The oldest confirmed intentional burials date back roughly 100,000 years, found in Qafzeh Cave in what is now Israel. Human remains were discovered curled in a position that doesn't happen naturally, alongside deer antlers positioned near the body. Antlers don't end up next to a corpse by accident. Someone put them there. That detail matters more than it first appears. An animal that simply avoids danger has no reason to arrange anything around a body that's already dead. The threat is over. There's nothing left to fear. But arranging objects around the dead suggests something else was happening in the minds of the people who did it. Not just relief that the danger had passed, but a response to the death itself. As an idea, something that needed to be addressed even after the danger was gone. By 30,000 years ago, the evidence becomes harder to explain any other way. At sites across Europe, archaeologists have found burials with elaborate preparation, bodies covered in red ochre pigment, jewelry made of shell and ivory beads placed on the remains, and in some cases, entire skeletons buried with tools that would have taken real time to make. One burial, in what is now Russia, at a site called Sunghir, contained 2 children buried head to head, covered in thousands of individually carved ivory beads. Estimates suggest each bead took roughly an hour to produce. That's thousands of hours of labor, dedicated to people who could no longer benefit from any of it. That kind of investment doesn't happen without a belief that something about the person or the death itself still mattered. So what actually causes this fear in the first place? Psychologists have a name for the leading explanation: terror management theory. The idea is straightforward once you hear it. Humans are the only species aware enough to understand 2 things at once: that we are alive and that we will eventually not be. That combination creates a specific kind of psychological pressure that no other species has to manage, because no other species holds both of those facts in mind at the same time. According to this theory, cultures, religions, art, and even the drive to have children or build something that outlasts us are, in part, responses to that pressure. Not tricks to avoid thinking about death, but structures built to make the awareness of it survivable. A belief in an afterlife gives the fear somewhere to go. A monument gives a person a way to exist past their own death. A child carries something forward. None of these fully remove the fear. They manage it, which is what the theory's name describes. There's an experiment researchers have run for decades that shows this pressure operating in real time in people today. Participants are split into 2 groups. One group is asked to briefly write about their own death The other writes about something neutral, like dental pain. Afterward, both groups answer questions about their own cultural or moral beliefs. The group that wrote about death consistently shows a stronger reaction, defending their own worldview more firmly, judging people who violate their values more harshly, and expressing more loyalty to their own group identity. Simply being reminded of death, even briefly, changes how firmly a person holds on to meaning. The fear doesn't just sit quietly, it reaches into behavior almost immediately. This raises a real question about the ancient burials. Were early humans at Qafzeh or Sunghir managing this exact pressure tens of thousands of years before anyone had a word for it? The honest answer is that we can't interview them, but the pattern is consistent with what the theory predicts. Elaborate burial, objects meant to accompany a person somewhere, investment of enormous time into something with no practical survival benefit. These are the same behaviors terror management researchers see today, just built from stone tools and ivory beads instead of religious texts and national flags. There's a difficult companion question underneath all of this. If the fear of death shaped burial, religion, and art, did it also shape violence? Some researchers argue that group identity, the very thing terror management theory says helps manage death anxiety, is also what makes people willing to see outsiders as a threat. A worldview that promises meaning also, by definition, excludes people who don't share it. That tension, comfort built from belonging, and the exclusion that sometimes comes with it, may be as old as the burials themselves. Nobody has resolved that question, and it's worth sitting with rather than answering too quickly. What's clearer is the shape of the timeline. Somewhere around 100,000 years ago, something shifted in the human mind that allowed us to understand our own eventual death, not as an immediate threat, but as a certainty waiting somewhere ahead. Every religion, every monument, every tradition of remembering the dead traces back to that shift. Not because early humans invented death, every species that ever lived has died, but because humans, alone among them, learned to see it coming. You are still managing that same pressure today in smaller and quieter ways than a burial covered in ivory beads. Every time you make a plan for next year, raise a child, build something meant to outlast you, or simply avoid thinking about it entirely, you are doing what the people at Sunghir were doing 30,000 years ago, finding a way to hold a fact that no other species has ever had to hold.